Hello and welcome to my Solasta Crown of the Master Wizard Class Guide, levels 1 to 5. I'm your host, Methfu. If this guide manages to help you out even a tiny little bit, please smash that like button, it'll be greatly appreciated. Alright, let's go. Okay, so let's start a new wizard character. So, we are now in the Ancestry page. The best race for wizard, in my opinion, that you can choose at the moment is High Elf. Okay, so the reasons why is because ability score increases dexterity by 2. Most of the time, I'm going to have quite a high dex as a wizard because I'll be using longbow for most of the early game until my cantrips, my damage cantrips, catch up with the damage of the longbow. And then Fate Ancestry, saving throw advantage against charm, immunity to magical sleep. Once again, really great racial, really great passive. Dark vision, see normally in dim light and in natural darkness, as if in dim light. So darkness is a big deal in this game. Once again, it's literally so annoying to have disadvantages against creatures you can't see properly. So dark vision is really, really good in this game. Keen sense is proficient in the perception skill. I mean, it's okay. I'm not going to say no. Trance 4 hours meditation are sufficient to rest. Yeah. Then we go to High Elf, the lineage features. So moving, you get 6 tiles of movement. This is quite a lot of movement. It's really good for repositioning, get out of harm's way, disengaging. Very, very strong. Ability score increase, intelligence +1. At the time of this guide, this is the only race that has ability increase to intelligence. So this is really, really strong in a wizard because intelligence is your main stat for being able to hit. Elf weapon training, proficient with longsword, shortbow, and longbow. This is the main thing we're looking at here, longbow, because that's a 1d8 on the longbow, which will out damage your cantrips right at the start of the game until you level up more and get the higher damage cantrips that will out damage the longbow eventually. High Elf cantrip, choose one wizard cantrip using intelligence as a spell casting ability. So this gives you an extra cantrip to play around with. Really, really strong because it gives you more choices. Then over to languages, common, elvish, and one language of your choice. Once again, sort out your languages between your party members. Just make sure you're not overlapping too much, and yeah, you're good to go. Okay, let's move on. So we're going to pick wizard for the base of this guide. Helps out a lot to pick the right class. So then we go into equipment. We don't really need to change anything here. The equipment's all okay. Quarterstaff's cool. We're not really going to be melee much. We're going to be mainly using longbow and utility spells and also damage spells. So we're just going to validate that and then go to next. So over to the background tab. So the choice here really stems from whether you want to wear medium armor or you want to use mage armor to get your armor class up to the higher regions. So for the base of this guide, we'll do a cell sword so we can wear medium armor. As you can see, soldiering proficient in athletics and intimidation, not so good. I mean, it's okay. I'm not going to say no because athletics is actually quite good in this game because you need to be able to jump and climb stuff a bit better. So that's actually okay to have that. But this is the main reason we're taking this. Proficient with medium armor. It means we can wear half plate, which gets our AC really, really high. It makes us quite tanky in the long run. More tanky than you would be if you were using mage armor. But obviously, if you want to take something else for some reason, then you can and just use mage armor to fill in the gaps. Additional languages, choose one additional language. I mean, yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to say no. Smithing, you are trained to craft basic ammunition with smith's tools, arrows, and bolts. Yeah, once again, I'm not going to say no to that. It's quite cool to do that kind of thing. And then over to personality flags. You can literally pick whatever you want, whatever your flavor is. This is literally RP purposes, role-playing purposes only. So just pick whatever you want your character to be catered to and how you want them to play out and act. We're just going to pick that for the basis of the guide. Okay, now on to the interesting part. So his ability scores, once again, I do point by. I play on Cataclysm, the hardest difficulty in the game at the moment. There might be harder ones being added in, but at the moment Cataclysm is the hardest, so I just go for a fair roll of the point by. Make sure I'm not too overpowered, make sure I'm not too underpowered, and it's just right, it's just average. So okay, on the wizard, we're going to pump strength to 10. So this is really good because we need to jump a lot, we need to climb a lot. Jumping and climbing is really, really relevant in combat. The more you can jump and climb, the more you can get around places and the more options you have in a tactical point of view. Then we're going to pump dex all the way to 16. This will make our longbow do a lot of damage, have a higher attack roll, and in general just out damage the cantrips you have at the beginning of the game until you get to higher levels. So this is really good to take. It helps negate the early game weakness that wizard has. Then after that, we're going to take our con to 14. I don't recommend having con any lower than this for wizard or even most characters. Con 14 is a good amount of hit die to have, because if you have any less than that, you're just gonna die really quickly and really fast. Then intelligence, we're going to bring that up to 16. This is your main stat. This is the one you want to pump the most. So this is great to have it about 16. When you get ability scores, then you start putting that to 18 and eventually 20, which is the max. Then we're going to dump the last 2 points in wisdom just for the will saving throws. Will saving throws is probably the most used saving throws in the game at the moment. So you really want that at 10 at least and not in a minus. So yeah, that is the stats for the Cell Sword Wizard, just to make sure you have enough strength that you're not overburdened and walking at reduced speed because you're wearing medium armor half plate. So keep that at 10. And it's also good, as I said, in combat. So go to next. Now we're going to look at the skills. So over in the Proficiencies tab, we have class skills of 2. So we're going to take Arcana because that's like the main one you want to take as a wizard. No one else is going to take this really. Wizard is normally going to be the one taking that because it has or will have the most highest intelligence out of your party members. The next one I normally take is either between religion, investigation, or history. I'm just going to go history. I feel like history comes up quite a lot more than the others, so I'm going to pick history. It's quite interesting to learn more about the lore and stuff of the game, so yeah, history it is. Okay, over in languages, once again, make sure you have a even spread of languages. Don't overlap. Don't just go everyone can speak giant. Just to spread it out a tiny bit. I'm just going for the basis of this. I'm just take Orcish and Otemeran. So next. Okay, now in the spell tab, this is where it gets quite interesting. I'm going to briefly go over all the cantrips really quickly, just so it's not too long-winded. But I'll obviously show you the best ones to take. So because we are high elf, we get 1 cantrip for free on top of our class cantrips for free. Okay, starting with Acid Splash. So Acid Splash is quite a respectable cantrip. It's a fairly okay range, not the highest, not the worst though. It does respectable damage, and also on top of that, if you hit a target and it has something next to it, like a tile adjacent to it, they will also take that damage as well. So it's pretty decent to have. Annoying Bee. So this has okay range. It's nothing amazing. It's nothing bad. And what this does is you literally put it on an enemy spellcaster, like a wizard or cleric, and you're able to give them a disadvantage on their concentration, which allows you to break it a lot quicker to get rid of their buff or any sort of nasty things they put on you or put on themselves. So over to Chill Touch. This has an incredible range of 24 tiles, which is great. Also on top of that, it has great respectable damage, really good damage, but that's not even the main draw of the ability. The main draw is that it stops things from healing for 1 turn. So if you use this on a cleric or something, or any sort of enemy, or stop them from regenerating, or stop them from healing up, there's a lot of enemies that heal and regenerate in this game, so it's actually a very good cantrip to have as utility. On top of that, if it's undead, it gains a disadvantage on attacking the caster, so that's another bonus to it as well. Undead do have quite a high resistance to necrotic damage, so it's not as good as it may seem at first glance, but it's still pretty strong and worth having. So Dancing Lights has a respectable range of 24 tiles once again, which is quite high on the high spectrum. Dancing Lights is one of those abilities that's quite rubbish in most games, but in this game, because darkness is such a big deal, it actually becomes a really good ability. A very good cantrip to have indeed, because if you can light stuff up that's from really far away from you, it avoids you having disadvantages on your range attack, so you can actually hit them normally without having some sort of minus to your attack roll. Dazzle, I mean, it lowers the target's AC and prevents reaction until the next turn. It's just not really worth using half the time. On top of that, it's a melee hit, so you literally have to get your wizard into harm's way and melee hit the target to make this active, and most of the time you don't want your wizard in a melee fray. You want to keep that back if you can help it. Moving on to Firebolt. This is the highest damage cantrip in the game at the moment. It has a very good range of 24 once again, which is one of the longest ranges you can have as cantrip. It does very respectable damage. It's just an all-round good damage cantrip to take. Okay, light. So an object you touch emits a powerful light for a limited time. So once again, darkness is a big deal in this game. Really big deal. You can cast this on a weapon before you go into combat. You can put it in your main tank or whoever you got like up front to make sure you don't get any disadvantages on anything. And yeah, it's just very strong to have because some of the enemies, they actually benefit from being in darkness. So you want to make sure you have this up at all times, or at least one of the characters. So you either put it on the wizard or the cleric at least, depending who you're using, or depending how you space out your spells. Okay, poison spray. I mean, it looks good on paper. It does a fair amount of damage, but the range on it, that's pretty much melee. That's 2 tiles range. Once again, you don't want your wizard in melee if you can avoid it. So that's a no from me. So Ray of Frost, the range isn't great. It's half the range of most of the high damage cantrips. It does good damage. it hinders people, so it applies the slow effect on them, which decreases their move speed. So it can be good if you're trying to kite something, get away from stuff. The enemies have quite a lot of movement speed though, so most of the time I don't tend to pick this one up. Shadow Armor grants 3 temporary hit points for 1 minute. So on a wizard, this isn't that great because the 3 temporary hit points are really not a big deal, because most of the time you're going to die anyway if you're getting hit as a wizard, because you're just going to take a lot of damage, and the wizard doesn't have a big health pool anyway, so it's not really that great to cast. It's better to probably pump out more damage and mitigate the damage that way by killing them than it is to cast this. So Shadow Dagger launches an illusionary dagger that causes psychic damage. It has great range on it, 24, very respectable. It does really good damage, and it's also a will save. A lot of the enemies in the game don't have very high will save, or wisdom saves should I say. So this is actually quite good to use because it doesn't require a reflex save. A lot of the enemies will have high dex and a high reflex save, so this is actually very strong. It actually rivals Firebolt quite nicely. Even though Firebolt does more damage, this will be more guaranteed to hit a lot of the time. Okay, you got Shine. Shine is, yeah, it's not really worth taking. Anything Shine does, Light does better, and same with Dancing Lights. Dancing Lights and Light are a lot better than Shine. Then over to Shocking Grasp. Damage and daze an enemy on successful touch. It is a melee hit again. I don't really want my wizard in melee range unless I had some sort of spec or multi-class into the spec that made me want to stay in melee, so this is not really worth taking. Then we've got Sparkle. Once again, Sparkle illuminates, lights stuff up, but it's the same as Shine. It just suffers from being inferior to Light and Dancing Lights. These two are good, these two are bad. Then we've got True Strike. True Strike, you waste a turn to be able to hit a target you can see for one time. But the thing is, you spend your whole turn doing that, and it's also a concentration spell on top of that, so it's not worth taking on the wizard. Okay, now the cantrips I'm actually going to take. So I'm going to take Chill Touch because it's just very good for utility, does respectable damage, has nice range on it, which is decent. Then on top of that, I'm going to take Shadow Dagger because it only has a will saving throw, so it's nice to take that as well because a lot of the, as I said, a lot of the enemies do not have wisdom saving throws that are very high. Then after that, I'll probably take Dancing Lights because, as I said before, darkness is a big deal in this game, and it's good to light that up. You can move it as a bonus action during combat, so you can reposition it anytime you want. Okay, and the last slot is between Light and Firebolt. So if you have a cleric in the party, I recommend taking Firebolt. If you don't have a cleric, take Light for your wizard, because if you have a cleric, you can take Light as his cantrip, because the cleric's cantrips aren't actually that great at the start of the game, or at this version at least. So I normally play with a cleric, so I'm going to take the Firebolt. Okay, we now have access to our level 1 spells. So we'll go through them really quickly once again, just really briefly brush over them. So Burning Hands does really good damage. It just has a very low range on it. Can be quite situational, but does very good damage if you can group people up and get them in the situation where you can hit multiple targets with that cone. The cone's actually quite hard to hit. It's not as easy as it looks in that picture, but you will see what I mean when you actually go and use it for yourself. So then Charm Person. Charm Person's not bad, it's just not great. It's okay, it just doesn't really do that much because it only charms the person to the caster, so they'll still end up hitting your allies, your rest of your party members, but they won't target the wizard. So this means it's kind of like a detaunt or something to stop them from attacking you. So, but it's not really worth taking. Then we've got Color Spray. Color Spray is okay. It's once again, it's melee range. It's very close. The Conant's quite low, and but yeah, it doesn't have that much punch for what it does in this class. Then we got Comprehend Languages. This can be quite decent. At the moment in this guide, languages aren't the biggest thing in the world, but can become very useful later on. Over to Detect Magic. You need to have at least one character having this. So if you're cleric or your wizards should be having Detect Magic on them at all time. You can cast this as a ritual spell. It means that you don't end up spending a spell slot or a spell cast on this. So it means you can just cast this for free and it costs 10 minutes of your time. So now we've got Expeditious Retreat. Gain movement points to become able to dash as a bonus action for a limited time. There's a lot of better abilities in this that you can use as a wizard to get away. I also wouldn't recommend taking that myself. False Life, gain a few temporary hit points for a limited time. This is actually fairly decent compared to the Shadow Armor. I think the Shadow Armor was only 3, whereas this is actually close to 9 temporary hit points if you get lucky. So it's actually pretty decent to take if you're in a bit of a pinch. And also later on, once you get the higher level spells, you're probably going to want to cast this anyway at some point, just to get rid of your level 1 spells, because you probably won't be using them as much as you were at the beginning of the game. Then we've got Featherfall. Provide a safe landing when you or an ally falls. At this moment of time, Featherfall is normally really good in most of the other versions of a 5th edition, but in this, Featherfall isn't that useful at this moment. Fog Cloud, I went over this in my Ranger guide as well. It's pretty good to give the creature disadvantage, but the only problem is the creature can just walk out of that little spear that's going on. Can just walk out of it and then shoot you. So it's still okay though. It really depends how you use it, if you're quite creative with it. So Hideous Laughter, make an enemy helpless with irresistible laughter. It has a very low ranger of 6, so be very careful and mindful of that. It's also a concentration spell, but if you manage to hit it, you will take someone out of the fight and CC them until they make a saving throw check against wisdom to get out of that. So identify, most of the time in 5th edition rules, you can short rest to identify items. In this game, you can't do that at the moment. So picking up identify is actually very, very useful to save you some gold in the long run, and also enable you to identify items or magical items or properties straight away, so you can use them and equip them straight away. So it's very decent to have that. I went over jump in my Ranger guide, increasing ally jumping distance. It's actually quite decent to have once again, because jumping, climbing, all that kind of thing, just to get to items, get to chests and stuff, doing the jump puzzles, is very useful to have this kind of thing for utility, at least at some point in the game. So mage armor pretty much comes down to whether you went sellsword or not. If you went sellsword and took medium armor as your proficiency, which you would get if you were playing sellsword as your background, then you don't need mage armor. But if you didn't do that, the mage armor moves itself up to like a tier 1 ability, because you'll be casting mage armor at the beginning of most fights or before most fights all the time, because you'll need it for the mitigation that it gives you of the AC. Okay, magic missile, the bread and butter of the early game, is still fairly relevant in the mid to late game. Guaranteed damage, does not miss, does not have saving throws, does respectable damage, and also scales very nicely over time. This is a very strong spell, one of the strongest that you can take in this tier. Protect versus evil and good. Touch an ally to give them protection from evil or good creatures for limited time. So this is actually quite strong. You place this on your tank, allows you to mitigate more damage because you are dodging it with your tank with the added armor class. It's not too bad. It's not the best, but it's above average, definitely. Okay, shield, increase your AC by 5 just before you would take a hit. So you don't have to cast this straight away. You can actually use it on reaction. So if you're about to be hit by like a massive big ogre or something like that, you can cast this to see if you can mitigate the damage and avoid the hit altogether. So it's actually a very strong ability, that one as well, or spell should I say. Okay, over to sleep. So sleep is very good on little creatures. It's just not so good on the big creatures, but situationally it's very good if you use it in the right situation, if that makes sense. The range isn't too bad. It's 18 range in it, but the thing is, it doesn't work on big creatures, but with lots and lots of little ones and they surround you, then this thing is really, really overpowered if you're using it on little creatures and you can't kill them fast enough. So yeah, sleep's a good one. Okay, so Thunder Wave emits a wave force that causes damage and pushes creatures and objects away. So this is quite a big range. 3-cell cube originating from you is a very big range. It's quite good as a get out of jail free card if you can manage to actually push them away. They can negate it. It does respectable damage, but if they negate it, they're still on top of you, and that's the only problem with that ability. So I get to pick 6 class spells. Anything you don't pick now, you can find or make a scroll later to scribe it into your spell book, so you will have access to all the abilities eventually. You can also buy them from the shop as well. So anything you're missing or want to try out, you can buy from the shop and just memorize it and prepare it ready for the next day and try it out. So here we go. So I'm going to pick Magic Missile as my #1 pick, #1 draft, because that's amazing. Next on my list is going to be Shield, because that's also really, really goddamn good. It's lovely, like if you get caught out of position and you're about to be welled on by some bunch of bad guys, it's really, really good get out of jail free card. I'm going to take Identify, because Identify, as I said, is really good in this game because you can't just short rest for identifying items. Detect Magic, someone needs to have it, so you might as well put it on the Wizard, because you can just ritual cast that anyway. Okay, so I have 2 slots left, and out my 2 slots, it's between Burning Hands, False Life, Hideous Laughter, and Sleep. I'm going to take Sleep because that AoE on little critters and stuff, that's very nice to have, because otherwise you just get overwhelmed by little guys. That's really annoying. So yeah, Hideous Laughter, really, really good for the CC. It's a save or suck kind of spell. So let's click next. So once again, appearance does not matter. We're going to call it Wizard just for the process of this guide and finish. Okay, we're going to start leveling up this Wizard to level 5. So let's see what we get in this one. So level 2 grants you specialization with a certain kind of magic. We also get 1 more spell slot. We also get 2 more spells to select. And we got Arcane Recovery. So once per day when you complete a short rest, you can recover a number of expanded spell slots, max 5th level, up to half your Wizard level rounded up. This is a very strong ability on short rests and stuff. It's very, very strong. Let's go next. So now we have 3 subclasses here. So we're going to start with the Green Mage. So Green Mage is kind of like a Ranger, Cleric, Druid kind of thing. You get extra spells and stuff you wouldn't normally have as a Wizard. So I'm just going to go through them really quickly and see. So Entangle is pretty damn good. Fairy Fire is good. Good Berry is good. Hunter's Mark is pretty damn good if you're going Longbow Wizard. Then we've got Long Strider, which increases your movement speed, which is okay. Passport Trace, very good. Less Frustration is utility. Fine Traps, yeah. Protection from Poison, no. Conjure Animals, decent. Crate Food, also decent as well, because it's similar to Good Berry, because you don't have to carry around rations and stuff, so you can actually use the Green Mage as your Ranger if you wanted to avoid carrying around the heavy rations and stuff. Daylight's okay. Windwalk, yeah. Giant Insect, not too bad, but yeah, it's okay. Freedom Movement, no. Identify Creatures, no. Contagion is okay, and Insect Plague is also okay-ish. You also get Smithing. You're trained to craft basic ammunition with Smith's tools. I'm sure someone else in the party could do that though. You get Proficiency of Light Armor, but because we are Sellsword, we are taking Medium Armor, which is a higher armor class than Light Armor anyway. Proficiency Short Bow, we don't really need that because we're going to be taking a Longbow because we are an elf. Fighting Style Archery. The archery fighting style is pretty damn good though, because it actually adds on 2 more to your attack die, or 2 more to your damage, should I say, because it gives you the ranger's passive, or the ranger's fighting style, should I say, the 2 extra points of damage. So when you hit level 6, you get Entangling Shot. Your arrow can transform into a Violent Impact. The target must make a strength saving throw or be restrained until the end of your next turn. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier, minimum 1. All users recharge at the end of a long rest. This is actually a very strong ability because, as I said, it can literally restrain your target, stop them from moving, which will give you opportunity attacks, or should I say advantage attacks on them, allowing your rogue or whoever you're playing with to get advantage attacks or set up sneak attacks or backstabs. Then as an added bonus, we get Natural Explorer. You benefit from the same advantages as rangers when in a forest environment. So you get bonuses when you're in a forest pretty much. So moving on to Lore Master. So Lore Master, Arcane Tradition features, Keen Mind, advantage on Arcana, History and Investigation ability checks. Advantage to copy scrolls to your spellbook, scroll and potion crafting costs times are halved. So in this game, crafting isn't a massive deal at all. It's really, I don't think it's really worth taking a subclass just for that, because there's not a big emphasis on the crafting side of things. Because normally in the 5th edition you probably pick this up because crafting potions and scrolls is a lot harder and you fail a lot. In this you don't seem to fail it as much as you normally would. So then at higher levels we get Spell Academic. You learn 1 additional spell each time you gain a level. That's nothing to like sneeze at or laugh at. It's actually quite good, but it's not as good as the other subclasses. This is probably the weakest one of the 3. So then we have Shock Arcanist. So this is a homebrew arcane warfare. When casting spells from the war list, they count as being cast at 1 slot level higher than the one you actually use. Burning Hands, Magic Missile, Thunder Wave, Acid Arrow, Scorching Ray, Flaming Spear, Fireball, Lightning Bolt, Ice Storm, Cone Code, and probably various other damaging abilities later on will be in that list. So what this does, it just makes your spell or your damage spell have a higher level than normal. So instead of casting 3 magic missiles at level 1, or should I say level 2, you'll be casting 4 magic missiles, which will increase your damage quite a lot. So it literally makes you cast that damage spell as if you were 1 level higher than you should be. So it's a very, very strong class this. Then at level 6 we got Arcane Fury. Add your proficiency bonus and imp bonus to evocation spell damage for 1 minute, which charges after a long rest. This is going to get out of hand very, very quickly. The damage is going to ramp up massively. This is a very strong ability to have as this kind of character actually, because obviously you're getting more damage out your spells anyway. So on top of that, you got like all the damage from that, and you got something you can just pop to even do even more damage, just to obliterate an enemy really quickly. Okay, so for the basis of this guy, we're gonna go Shock Arcanist. Number 1, because we have medium armor ready, so we don't need that. But Green Mage is also very decent. Green Mage has a lot more utility. Shock Arcanist is for a wizard that wants to do a lot more damage and just be very heavy hitting. So next, so we've got 2 more class spells to choose from. Once again, if you don't have mage armor yet and you're not using medium armor, pick that up because you're gonna need that. But out of all these choices, I'm gonna take False Life because that'll come in handy later on when we're not using our level 1 spells as much for damage anymore. And Burning Hands, because there are situations where Burning Hands comes in useful, and that does a lot of damage because, like, obviously if you hit 3 targets of Burning Hands, That's doing close to 18 damage, or 18 damage maximum it can do, compared to the missiles that do about 5 per hit. So that's going to do a lot of damage if you're hitting at least 3 targets, or even 2 targets. It out damages the magic missile. So if you get the situation where you can use the burning hands, it's very decent to use. Okay, so that is level 2 done. Let's level up to level 3 now. So gain more hit points, gain more spell slots. Let's see what we can pick now. So we unlocked level 2 of our spells. So out of all these, I'll go through them really quickly once again. Acid Arrow is okay. It has an okay range on it. Does a respectable damage. It's just a lot of the time that after effect, the recurrent effect, the acid, the poison, that's going to be mitigated by a lot of the enemies. They're just going to be like, nah, I don't want to be poisoned today. It's not happening, mate. Not happening. But otherwise, it does a fair amount of damage. Then we've got Blindness. Blind an enemy for 1 minute. Can be quite decent to use. It's not bad. It depends what you want your wizard to do. If you want them to be more on the utility side, then I can see a reason for taking it. But you want them to be damaged, then I would probably pass on this one. Blur. Blur is very strong. Very, very strong. It makes your wizard become like almost a semi-tank, to be fair. Because whatever creature attacks you, they get a disadvantage on attacking you. So it makes you very tanky. Coupled with your medium armor and everything else, it makes you very hard to hit. So Darkness. Darkness is pretty decent. But the problem with Darkness is it's like a double-edged sword. You throw it on an enemy so they can't see, but you also can't see them either. So you're both getting disadvantaged. So you kind of end up like mirroring it. So you're literally not at an advantage. You're disadvantaged from casting this. You've just cast it and you're kind of at the same position as you were before you even casted this spell in the first place. So Dark Vision can be good, but because I built my wizard as an elf, I don't really need to take this at all. Flaming Spear. This is very strong, a very strong ability. But the only problem with this ability is it requires concentration. So it can be broke. You can cast it, you can move it around as your extra action per turn. Does good damage, can use it to move around with, can position it in places where you can bottleneck enemies so they're taking damage all the time in its radius. But the only problem is it is concentration, so it can be broken off you if you take a heavy hit on the wizard, which stops you from maintaining the concentration needed to cast this. Hold Person, very decent. It needs a will save. Has fairly good range on it as well of 12 tiles, which isn't too bad. It's not the highest, but it's actually fairly decent compared to some of the other spells. Paralyzing a human is very good because obviously you take them out the fight completely, so they're literally not being able to do anything. On top of that, you get advantage attacks as well in this game. So if you have a rogue or something, he's backstabbing all the time if you've held them. So invisibility, make an ally invisible for a limited time. It's actually not too bad. It's not that great though. You can throw it in your rogue, throw it yourself to sneak into places. It's okay. Okay, knock. So magically open locked doors, chests, and the like. So this is actually really good to take. Or you can get a scroll and get it from later on in the game. There'll be some like locks and stuff that your rogue won't be able to open, which this can. So it's actually very beneficial to have this at some point in the game so you can open the locks that your rogue or your low life character can't. I've never really seen the benefit of levitate at all because a lot of the time you can just jump to places and stuff, or you know, I don't really see the point in casting that. It's a bit of a waste of a turn. Magic weapon on a wizard is not very good because you're not going to really want to use this that much, so you might as well pass over that one. Misty Step, this is one of the best abilities or spells you get as a wizard. Teleports you to a free cell you can see no more than 6 cells away. This is what I was talking about the get out of jail free cards. This is a very good one to have. If you get surrounded melee, you can teleport the way out there and not get any opportunity attacks as you're fleeing. So it's very, very good. On top of that, it's a bonus action. So we've got Ray of Enfeeblement. Weaken an enemy so they deal less damage for one time. Most of the time, it's probably better just to kill the enemy or CC them completely, like with a hideous laughter or something. So most of the time this ain't really worth using or wasting a turn to use, and it's also concentration on top of that, which can be broken quite easily. Then we've got Scorching Ray. Fling a rays of fire at one or more enemies. This is almost like magic missiles, apart from you need a hit check. Has a good range on it of 24 tiles, which is the longest range you can probably get for the spells at the moment. So yeah, it hits pretty hard as you can see. It does up to 12 damage. Obviously each one will hit up to 12, so it's a potential of 36 damage if you hit with all of them for the max damage you can. So it's pretty decent to have that. See invisibility. At this moment of making this guide, I didn't see much use in this, but it will be very, very useful later on. I'm guessing against more rogues and stuff, or like characters that can stealth, because stealth characters, they will insta-give you if you don't have something like this. And it's very good to prep this and cast it in advance, just so you're ready, you can see them, and yeah, it's very strong to have. Very good ability. Spider Climb. Touch an ally to allow them to climb walls like a spider for a limited time. I just don't see really the point in using that as a wizard. It might be good on other characters that need to get to other places and stuff, but with wizard, you're probably going to have Misty Step, which actually accomplishes the same thing pretty much. as Spider Climb, so I would rather take this over that. Okay, now that we're going through the level 2 spells, the ones I would pick is probably Scorching Ray and Misty Step. Scorching Ray because it's decent damage, it's pretty much the same as Magic Missiles, apart from you have to hit with it. And Misty Step is a get out of jail free card, and you can get away from anything that tries to absolutely gang up on you. So we'll finish that, we'll level up again. So we're going to level 4 now. We get to pick an ability score, or we get to pick a bonus feat. So here are your choices, yeah? So you can pick ability score, you can raise your intellect up to 18, because as I said before in other guides that I've done, bringing your main stat up is very, very crucial depending on what your class is. If you don't have decent feats to take, it's always beneficial to get this to 20 as fast as you can, because that's the max you can get. Okay, over here we have choice of Annoying Bee, Ray of Frost, and Light. So because I got quite a lot of damage cantrips ready with Shadow Dagger and Firebow and Chill Touch, I got 3 to use here. I'm probably not going to have time to use the Ray of Frost or find situations where I use it. So my main choices here are probably Acid Splash, Light, and Annoying Bee. So out of these 3, once again, if you have a cleric to have light on something, or as one of his spells that you can cast, or cantrip should I say, then do not take this. Just let your cleric do it. But if you don't have a cleric, please take the light, because it will become very beneficial for you in the campaign. Annoying Bee, once again, you have to cast this and break the concentration and stuff. It's very good. So this is actually very strong to have. The range isn't that great, but it's still decent. It's very decent. Okay, because we're now level 4, we can pick another 2 more class spells. So we're going to have a look through these and see which ones are best to take. Right, so out of all these, depending what scrolls you get, obviously, because during the game, you probably will pick up like a knock. You might pick up, you know, a see invisibility or something. So it's obviously going to affect what you choose right now if you already have it. So out of all these left here, the best ones are Blur, Flaming Spear, Knock, and See Invisibility. So I'm going to pick Blur because that makes you very hard to hit. It's very strong. It becomes strong later on. It stays relevant for most of the game, so you might as well pick it. So I'm going to take Knock just to help out the rogue a bit, or the low life background character that you picked. Because if they fail the lock pick, they can't do it again. And that'd be very frustrating if you can't open something and you want something in that chest. I'll be pretty annoyed myself. I'll be like, I'm not taking this. I'm restarting the whole game if I can't get this chest. That's it. So yeah, take Knock so you can avoid restarting the whole game. So we finished that, and then we will level this up one more time to level 5. So level 5, we've got some more hit points, we've got some more saving throws given to everything. We've got some more save DC increase. We get some more spell slots open up and 2 more spells to select. So let's have a look what we can pick here. So this tier is the big daddy of tiers for nearly every single character. Level 5 is a massive, massive damage spike for most characters. Most of the time they're getting extra attacks, but for the wizard we get the fireball, which is crazy. But before I do that, I'm just going to go through all the spells really quickly once again, just to show you or give you an understanding which ones are good and which ones aren't. Okay, so starting off with Bestow Curse. So this is a touch spell, which is really annoying as a wizard. As you know, you don't want to be in melee range at all. Doesn't really do a lot, so I'm just going to skip over that very quickly. Counterspell, interrupt an enemy spell casting spell up to level 3 automatically countered. DC 10 plus spell level otherwise. So this is really strong at enemy spellcasters. They're about to cast a sleep spell on you, you're like, nope. Anything like that. You can cast this reaction spell as well, so you can literally be fighting and then they'll do it and then you can literally react to it. It's very strong to have, really good against enemy spellcasters, can really, really mess up their day, ruin their day completely. They'll be complaining about that when they get home. Then we've got the spell Magic. End active spells on a creature or object, very strong to have. A lot of time you can get this on the cleric or something though and use that instead, but if you don't have it on the cleric, it's worth taking at some point during the run. So we've got Fear, frighten creatures and force them to flee. It's a 6-tile range cone. It's not that great. You have to be pretty close for that, and if they, you know, if they manage to resist it, that's kind of your spell done. Then we got the Holy Grail, that is Fireball. Launch a fireball that explodes from a point of your choosing. Massive range on it. Look at that range, 30. It's the most I've seen so far, I think, and it's got a big tile radius as well. Does really, 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 really high damage, as you can see, up to 46, and it also hits in a massive AoE. So this is going to be one of the main things you're going to take in a second. Then we've got Fly, and allow you touch gains the ability to fly for a limited time. Way better than Levitation. It's pretty decent, not too bad at all. You can get to difficult to reach places. Then Haste. Haste is another Holy Grail kind of spell to take. Make an ally faster and more agile and grant them additional action for a limited time. So you throw this on your wizard, you throw this on like your fighter or whoever you got, they're going to attack an extra time. It's very, very strong to have. It's insane. So we've got Hypnotic Pattern, charms enemies to make them harness into attacks. Haven't really tested this out, so I can't really make a judgment call on it. It seems pretty good on paper, seems very strong. Massive radius on it, it's got a good range on it as well, 24 tiles. Lasts 1 minute, 1 minute's a long time. Then we've got Lightning Bolt, unleash a stroke of lightning in a direction of your choice, damaging everyone it touches. So as you can see, it's in a line. It does fairly good damage, but I would say, why take this when you can take something that does that, you know? And like, the damage is around the same on both, but you're more likely to use this in a lot of situations where the enemies are more grouped up, because they're not going to be standing in like a Congo line waiting for you to shoot them with that. But obviously you must take it because it still does fairly good damage. So protection from energy, touch one willing creature to give them resistance to its damage type. So this is actually quite decent as well. Gives you protection from acid, gives you protection from cold, gives you protection from fire, protection from lightning and thunder. So it's actually quite decent if you know what's coming, but a lot of time you won't, so you won't be able to prepare this in time to place it on a character that might be taking those kind of elemental damages. So we've got Move Curse, moves all curses affecting the target. It's okay, quite situational, kind of like lesser restoration. It's probably worth taking at some point. So slows and impairs the actions up to 6 creatures. Nice respectable range of 24 tiles. And the radius, as you can see, is massive. So what this does is it halves the speed, so it gives them -2 AC and dex saves. And it also gives them only 1 max action and attack per turn. So this is actually really, really strong. If you place it on a group of enemies, it can really ruin their day completely. Thinking Cloud, create a cloud of incapacitating noxious gas. So fairly okay range, 18 tiles. Problem is, you kind of slam it down, it's kind of in your way a bit. It doesn't really do a lot over the other spells or the other good spells in here like slow and fireball, so it's not really worth taking half the time. Tongues, grant knowledge of all languages for 1 hour. This is very strong. At this moment in time, it's not that strong because there are not that many languages, but later on in the campaign there's probably going to be a lot more languages that you need to learn and stuff, so this is actually worth picking up at some point. Vampiric Touch grants you life draining melee attack for 1 minute. So good damage, fairly respectable. The problem is it's touch once again, and we don't want a wizard in melee range if we can avoid it. Also concentration as well, so it's fairly okay. It's just not worth taking over some of the other stuff here. Okay, so out of all these choices we got here, the main choices here are counterspell, fireball, haste and slow. So we're taking fireball definitely, because that is a massive damage spike and we need a damage spike because that's going to hit like a truck. Then our next ability we take is between slow, haste and counterspell. I really don't like enemy casters. I do not like them raining down fire crap at me. So I'm literally taking counterspell just to shut down that crap they throw out. Right, that about wraps up our beginner class guide for wizards. If you've got any questions, please leave a comment. And if you have any suggestions on what class to do next or what class you want to see, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll be happy to do it. Anyway, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.